And there's no question that what attracted me to work at New England Donor Services is probably the same answer you would get for every staff member who works here, whether that's the receptionist, a driver, a surgical tech, or our staff that work with families, which is the mission. And it's an incredible privilege to do this work and to see the absolute best of humanity in incredibly challenging circumstances, people who are willing to help others they don't know, but they know are in need. And then it's our team that then take that very generous gift and turn it into that life-saving legacy of a transplant for a patient who's waiting. And it's very rewarding work, but it's hard work. And we're working 24/7 under challenging circumstances throughout a 6-state region with over 200 hospitals to deliver on this mission every day.
I came to New England Organ Bank, as we were known at the time, about 15 years ago. And the majority of my background has been in healthcare, specifically hospitals, where you could say I grew up in HR. And I remember meeting Alex, who at the time was our general counsel. And I distinctly remember her saying to me, "Do not be fooled by the size of our organization. We might be small, but we're complex." And she was right. We are operating in 6 states. We have staff who work in 20 states across the country. We have 24/7 operations. And it was a challenge that I was ready for. And 15 years later, still loving it.
Yeah, and I might just add that Allie's like one of the best hires I ever made. So there's been many good hires because we have an exceptional team, but we really need an exceptional team because the work we do is powerful, and we need powerful leaders to make it happen together with all of our staff that are on the ground kind of doing this work.
So, as Alex mentioned right from the beginning, our mission is really what attracts people to this organization. And each year when we survey our employees about their experience at NEDS, the question that consistently ranks the highest is the connection to mission and purpose. So knowing the work that you do, whether you're on the front lines, offering families the opportunity for organ and tissue donation, or working behind the scenes packing supplies for recoveries, you're doing what you can to make the mission possible. And you feel the energy when you walk through our doors. And we consistently hear that from candidates who interview for opportunities here. And it's a rewarding place to work. So hiring talent is obviously one part of the equation. And the focus then shifts to keeping them engaged. How do we keep them engaged to focus on the mission? We have put together several programs over the years aimed at developing employees. And one of the most successful ones that we have implemented was a mentor program where senior leaders are paired with frontline staff outside of their own teams and divisions. And out of the 29 people that have gone through this program or are going through this program now, we've had 20% that have already received promotions. So we continue to invest in our staff because it's so important that they stay engaged and continue to develop their own talents so they can continue to fulfill the mission. And lastly, we work hard to create an inclusive culture where everyone feels welcome. In the last year, we rolled out a new program called an Employee Resource Group that brings employees together to seek education and connection among various groups to foster inclusivity and development so they can continue to grow professionally. We also launched several inclusive benefits, including a comprehensive healthcare program to support those employees and their families who identify as LGBTQIA+, as well as fertility benefits for family planning, because that doesn't always come in a one-size-fits-all package. So we're constantly seeking feedback from our teams to determine what they value the most, and then most importantly, putting their feedback into action.
Yeah, and I just want to add too that the retention component is so incredibly important because we do invest a lot of time in training our staff, and ultimately the services we deliver are entirely human services. That we need to engage the public in our endeavor of organ donation in order to make transplantation happen, and developing strong relationships in the community with our hospital partners, with transplant programs takes time, and it takes individuals who are really invested in making that happen and then making the mission a success. I think for us, starting with really clear vision and strategies, and then making sure that we're aligning our resources, human and financial, to line up with those strategies, and that we're doing it in that order, is really important and helpful. And it requires the entire team of leadership and the engagement of our staff to carefully identify those strategies that we think are going to be effective, and then think through again how we're going to align all of those pieces to deliver on the strategies in an effective way. And I'm happy to say that that formula has been incredibly successful for us. For example, since 2020, we've increased organ donation here in our service area in New England by 52%. And actually, we're on pace for another 21% increase this year over last year. But we can't support that kind of growth if we don't have the staff to do it and the resources overall to make it happen. And so the alignment, within the leadership team to make that foresight and be proactive and not wait until we don't wait to see later that, oh, maybe we need more resources to make this strategy happen, or start with, here's our pool of resources, now let's just divide it up, but really drive the entire process with vision first and a strategy, and then align those resources, and doing that far enough in advance that when we get to that place where we're actually implementing these things, we have all the tools and the people trained that we need to make it happen. And Allie, I'm sure you've got some additional thoughts on this too.
Yeah, thanks, Alex. I've been incredibly fortunate to work with you under, your leadership for the past 15 years. And as you mentioned, we've increased donations significantly. And in the time that I've been here, we have had to increase that headcount. So by 150% to be exact. And that has enabled us to make sure that we have those resources in place to meet the mission. And none of this comes without aligned executive leadership that's built on open communication and trust. And Alex instills her trust in me to lead the most critical component of our operation, people. And together with our high-performing leadership team, we work to ensure employees are engaged and endeavor to take down barriers to meeting their mission. Offering benefits, offering wellness opportunities, making sure that they focus on themselves and their families and have the ability to spend time with their families at the same time while working and focusing on meeting our mission. So it's critical for my team in HR to have our finger on the pulse of the operation. We have to flag any issues. We have to anticipate things that are coming down the pike that could impact our staff, and then develop a thoughtful and strategic plan to enable the donation process. And it's, as we've said a few times, it's tough work. It really is. And we want to make sure that our staff can really focus on what's important to them and to the mission.
Yeah, but I want to pick up on something Allie said, because it is tough work. And one of the ways that our leaders really make sure that we understand what that means is that we're out there in the field. And for example, Allie has been in the operating room, more than once to see an organ donation happen, see what our staff face in terms of different environments, the complexity of the process itself. And I think that's rare, that you have an HR executive that's really out in the field in that way. But that's something that, Allie has seen, is critically important. And she's not alone, that others on the executive team who are otherwise not in clinical roles are doing the same, so that we have a deep appreciation of what our staff are working with and on, and then can make sure that we're proactively identifying what they need as tools and culture and support, so that they can perform as maximally as possible to deliver on this mission.